This nature restoration project focuses on biodiversity and carbon sequestration in what is a 4-foot by 57-foot street plot. Essentially, we have a street here with all the asphalt and a yard, and so we can think about this as a street front with trees and other plantings as sort of a naturalized drop area in front of a house or a building. And so if I wanted to fantasize about putting together a dream team of plants, these would be the plants I would choose. If I wanted to make a super grouping of plants with all the best and the brightest plants for pollinators and biodiversity, these are the plants that I would put in, constrained by this 4 feet by 57 foot. And so my challenge to everyone is to create a similar planting, and I'd love to see what choices you make about plants and how to site them. So starting out, we have this brick here. The idea is sort of a barrier and a collection basin for all the leaves to go into, and it needs the third layer over here, but what you'll see is it's 2 layers thick. There's 2 layers, and that one's permeable, so the water can drain into it. And also all of these bricks are uniform, so we can get a nice level base, because I'm not that good at doing the mortar and the gap, so we can sort of have a even playing field to put the next layer of bricks on. So it's 2 wide and it's going to be 3 high, but here it's only 2 high. I'll finish that at another time. And then there's stone dust filling the gap between the asphalt and the brick, and sort of the leaves can nestle in and act as a catchment here for the leaves. So starting out on the right here, we have Clethra alnifolia, the summer sweet, one of the most productive bushes for pollinators. I think this is one of the most productive plants alongside oak leaf hydrangea and buttonbush. We have some invasive Japanese knotweed. Here's a Liriodendron tulipifera, the tulip magnolia. This is a snowbird. It had a lot of growth this year. This was $150 from Broken Arrow. It's the smaller one. Is only going to get 30 to 40 feet tall, but it's exactly the sort of showy plant you need, something that's native but just ornamental enough to get people excited about it. So it has all the native value, like the host for the tulip tree and the beauty moths, the silk moth and beauty moth, the specialist aphids on tulip trees, which are farmed by farmer ants, and the magnolia weevil, which uses its nose, its boring nose, to bore into the leaves, and then it lays an egg, and the egg eats the leaves, so it can cause defoliation. But that's part of biodiversity, is taking energy, nature creating niches that optimizes the energy usage or expenditure of sort of the world. So everything's really specialized, and it's carving out all these pockets to take advantage of all the energy that's available from the sun, to exploit the sun's energy in every way possible with infinite variety in order to create the most balanced homeostatic environment possible, ecosystem. So truncate leaves, and the petioles go all the way around the leaf bud, and you have, I don't see any petioles, but I feel like they're ready. I mean, here's a petiole. Oh, sorry, stipules, not petioles. Petioles are this part. But nice variegation. This is a really great tree. It'll take off next year. I think it's a grafted cultivar, so there's a graft union, and then the snowbird is grafted on top of a wild type Liriodendron rootstock. And I'm not sure what else to say about this tree. It's one of my favorites. I think after oaks, it's maybe tulip tree, because the enrichment species like hackberry and black gum, they don't have quite as many specialists. Well, hackberry has a lot, but tulip trees, they seem to be very functional for the species they do support. And of course the samaras, the wing seeds, are edible to all the wildlife, The flowers are used by specialist pollinators, bats, ruby-throated hummingbirds, bees, butterflies. Everything uses the flowers. They're probably even eaten by wildlife such as squirrels and chipmunks. And it's a perfect flower, so this tree is monoecious. And what a perfect flower means is that the male and female flowers are on the same flower. So it's one inflorescence, but it has male and female parts right on the same one, versus oaks, the catkins, the male and female parts are on their different flowers on different stems. And those trees are also monoecious. But tulip tree has a low germination rate, truncate leaves. Like I said, they look like a cat. And I would recommend this to everyone. There's another cultivar that gets a little bigger. This one maxes out at 40 feet. There's one that goes 40 feet to 60 feet. And that one has green. This is a white, sort of a white and a green. But it's what they had, and I think it's a nice showy piece for the front here. As you can see, we have mature Liriodendron as a neighbors, which I didn't realize. Otherwise, I might have maybe put a different tree here. But we'll show you those in a minute. And you can see it's quite a good shade tree with the size of the leaves on the mature ones, because the early leaves are a sink, and so they take energy. So we were making sure to water this a lot. Also, this sort of continuous planting bed is great because the water, the water can pool more easily, and you have more of a pond effect than sort of individual like saucers or water retention basins. It's better to have a big soil mass. Greater soil volume dries out less, and it's also, you can really retain the moisture better through the soil volume. And another thing, and even for watering, it's like if you move the hose and it's not dripping between sort of a grassy area, it all gets absorbed. And the leaves are an excellent mulch. Leaves are nature's mulch. So we try and understand the world as everything from the bottom up, like we're taught in school. First physics, and then chemistry, and then biology, and then senior year it might be computer science, or computer science plus a higher level of sort of the main science branches. But really, that's such a human way of thinking about the world, and it doesn't end up actually describing it very well. Only the human capitalist ideology or mindset, but the mentality of consumerist culture is understanding the world from the bottom up. But really, the world can only be understood from the top down, because water, the source of life, falls from the sky, and leaves, the source of mulch, or sort of the covering, the envelope of the world, fall from trees. So this sort of top down is an ill advised or ill adapted representation of how life works, and life is what we're talking about with this nature regeneration. And so it's an incongruous way to think about the world. And if you hear all the birds, we're not thinking about the birds even from a molecular biology standpoint, with the transcription and translation and all the organelles and all the membrane function and gene expression and stuff moving around, and all the ligands binding and all that stuff is maybe slightly even a grotesque way of thinking about it, because if you break a squirrel down or a chipmunk into all its constituent parts, it's not really understanding it. We think that we can understand neurology by taking a small organism and mapping where all the neurons go, and then like doing a complete map of the brain and just everything, and seeing all the connections, and then thinking that we can understand that organism by sort of the segmented analysis. Like you have a bunch of beads on a string and there's segments, or you have a monomer and it's a polymer, and you try and understand the greater function through this small micro analysis. But really, it's the big ideas that are most convincing, or most representative of how it actually works. If you have small narratives about why humans are successful or whatever. It's not, or why humans can escape the economic and ecological bottleneck. It's not really indicative of really what is beyond the veil, you know? Like, you looking at broader pictures, a less narrow approach is also sometimes is more useful, and it's more real. It's more practical even. I think it's harder to understand because we're not taught it. We're not taught about like the insects and stuff, but it is the base of life on the earth. We still have this bamboo thing here. I might have to come off anyway. So now that that intro is over, we're gonna go plant by plant. We have Lindera benzoin, the spice bush. Some people think it's a tree. I don't think it's a tree. I don't know. It's considered a tree in the Smithsonian Encyclopedia of Trees of North America, but we don't have to go by everything. Promethean silkmoth, tiger swallowtail, and black swallowtail, and spice bush swallowtail, of course, on spice bush. Little edible berries. The plants are dioecious male and female plants. I don't know which plant this is, but we're just going for the ecological role. Early pollinator source. Little inconspicuous flowers, tiny, like quite small, like pea grain size. However, if we find a little rock here, like that's bigger than the flowers are. Now we have the problem that I don't know what it is because all the leaves have turned. I think this is the Prunus maritima, the beach plum. I did this because you get prunus species like the paddle dagger moth, and it's a keystone plant, so just trying to get prunus, a native prunus, and I love the berries. I think I made a mistake. These are, they're not self-fertile. I think they need 2 of them, but I'm not sure. Anyway, we just got one here. We have the Ribes americana for gooseberry or blackcurrant, just for the edibility. I guess this is sort of the more food foresty thing. I wasn't gonna do the food forest, but so maybe this is like not the best plant. We could substitute it with oak leaf hydrangea or just something else. So anyway, maybe it's not, maybe I'm a little biased in my plantings. It's not a strict thing. You could even maybe throw in another tree, like put a hackberry or something. Here we have a red oak, Quercus rubra, and of course keystone species. We did 2 oaks. There aren't that many oaks around here because we have I guess we have a big prunus, right? And then we have that's actually a tree of heaven. And then we have a lot of invasive forests like Norway maples, but so I was trying to go with the oaks. If I can only do 2 trees spaced 25 feet apart, then gotta go keystone if we're just doing a 3 tree planting. So 1 tulip tree, 1 red oak, 1 white oak, and yes, they're not the same. The oaks are not the same. There's a pin oak that we'll see in a little bit over there, and the pin oak will pollinate the red oak, but the white oak will need some other pollination, and so why not do 2 of the same? I don't know. That's just mind virus or whatever. Like not super sensible, but it's okay. Here we got this is saying this one's a spice bush. I don't know. This might be the bun bush. The bun bush is cool because it's host plant for the lost outlet moth and some other ones. A lot of sphinx moths use it as a nectar source. Here is woodland phlox. I had this as a leftover, and we're trying to get a perennial patch started. And the perennials will add some color and some pollinator value. Now we have a Hamamelis virginiana, the witch hazel, common witch hazel. 62 species of caterpillar. You can see we have the donut on this one. The planting height was a little awkward here. I didn't really grade it, which maybe I should have, but also the idea is I'm planting high so that we can get a duft layer going and sort of have good soil, because otherwise the soil has really poor quality. It's a lot of like a lot of fill or process from when they did the asphalt back here, and I tried to remove as much of it as possible, but it was hard, so I planted high intentionally. You can see it's almost like it's a couple inches. We have that grade, that pitch there, so the leaves will fill in and over time will degrade, and then the plants will be at the right height, and then it can be mulched and managed from that perspective. And I don't know if it's higher than this back here. It might be even still a little higher. I think it needs to compress a little bit, but it'll be higher than the this other yard, but that's okay. I think it'll blend. It also might, this spot might be high, and down there it might be more level or even lower near the magnolia. So here's the white oak with the alba, and I was gonna say this is the witch hazel. I forget what that one is. Anyway, you know what? We're just gonna. That's Lindera benzoin. And that's the Phoenix. Did I get 2 spice bush? Maybe I bought 2 spice bush. That's totally possible. Oh, I remember. No, it's a Staphylia trifolia. It's a whatever it's called, the common name. So the idea is it's also a nectar source. So we're going heavy on the early nectar source because there are not that many red maple. I'm constrained to a certain planting area, so I'm thinking about full season pollinator support in a succession of blooms. And so we're going to do the early pollinator with the whatever it's called, the nut plant, which some people don't consider to be a tree. I'm not counting it as a tree, but some people do think the Staphylia trifolia is a tree. So we have oaks and the witch hazel. The witch hazel dagger moth, 62 species on witch hazel. So the thing with the oaks is there are 435 species of oak around the world. Let's go back to the red oak so I can show it. 435 species around the world of oaks, and 91 native species of oaks in the United States. So in terms of biological diversity, we have 165 oaks in Mexico, 109 of them being endemic, and then so that means that there's only 54 species that would be shared with the United States, like mostly Texas, New Mexico, or Guatemala and Belize on the southern. So we have oaks on all 7 continents of the world. And so Mexico having 165, that means 54, 109 endemic, so that's 54 that are shared. So there's a lot, and that's the Center for Biodiversity. China is next with 100 species of oaks, and the United States is after that with 91 species of oak, and then the rest contributing to the 435 are dispersed in South America and Europe, and of course other parts of Asia outside of China. In North Africa we have oaks, and in Oceania, none in Australia. Of course, Quercus rubra and Quercus coccinea are planted as ornamentals, but the way you get them in Oceania is sort of the Philippines and Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. So what did I want to say about oaks? Well, 41% of oaks worldwide are vulnerable, and 31% are 41% are special concern, and 31% are vulnerable, or sorry, threatened. Vulnerable is not actually a term anymore. And so in terms of species, you have 36 species in Mexico are endangered. So they're threatened. They're at the threatened status and not endangered yet. So 36 are endangered. China is 32, Vietnam is 20, and the US is 16. So if you want to plant an oak, should you plant a special concern plant? And I think my answer is maybe, but Connecticut, we have 12 species of oaks. We have 7 whites and 5 reds. So for the reds, we have the red oak here, Quercus rubra. We have the scarlet oak, Quercus coccinea. We have the black oak, Quercus valentina, and we have the we have the bear oak, Quercus ilicifolia, and now I'm blanking on the others. Oh, it's just 5 for reds. And then for whites, oh sorry, Pinna, Quercus palustris. And then for whites we have the 7. We have white oak over there, Quercus alba, swamp white oak, Quercus bicolor, chestnut oak, Quercus montana, chinkapin oak, Quercus merlin bergii, and the dwarf trincopin Quercus primordiis, and the post oak Quercus lorata. And so the only one, oh, and number 7, the special concern plant Quercus macrocarpa, the bur oak. So if someone wanted to plant an oak, yes, I guess I would recommend a bur oak. And why is it special concern for bur oaks? Well, not because they're especially rare, because they're a southern and western species, but because in Connecticut there are only a couple populations. They're really a montane oak species that's restricted to a certain natural area in one of the upper west corner. So yeah, I think bur oak's a really awesome oak, very effervescent, has 2 large lobes with a deep sinus separating the lobes and a smooth margin on the leaves. And so I planted 1 bur oak this summer, not too far from here actually, just a short walk away. And so I would, if someone wanted to plant them, and they're not sold at Earth Tones where I bought a lot of these plants, but I would recommend going to, you can buy them online at Possibility Place Nursery. Of course, keystone species that has an outsized effect on ecosystem services. We have a lot of Norway maples. Let's see if we can find that Liriodendron, the wild type tulip tree. That can get quite large. We have some burning bush. Of course, here's a juniper, Juniperus virginiana. So there's the tulip tree. This one, there's Norway maple in front of it, but you get the smooth bark. Ridges and furrows. With age, it becomes more flattened and dark gray with less defined crevices. So more flat bark. You can see those almost look like the old flowers, or the base of the flower that just hasn't, oh sorry, no, those are the seed. So it goes from, every angiosperm has a flower that makes a fruit that has seeds on them. So those are the seed pods, the samaras, and they're in groups of about 1,000 seeds, or maybe it's 100. Anyway, there's a lot of seeds in there, and you hit them and they fall off in these clusters. I feel like they fall off and then they don't really get dispersed by the wind because they're winged nuts, just like the maples, the samaras. But the maples at least do the twirly thing, they sort of parachute down, versus those, they only have wings on one side of them, and so I don't know how much they're really going to wind dispersed.